Good morning, channel friends. Years ago, someone told me that I shouldn't say good morning, channel friends, but I should say good morning, Magic Paint friends. Well, I didn't agree with that because I think that people who watch my tutorials and afterwards they use Magic Paint and they also use other products, of course, not always and only Magic Paint, but I would like to ask you something. Watch our tutorials, learn, do what you want, but the important thing is that you subscribe to the channel. You can see subscribe below. You sign up with your email and subscribe so you get the updates, and every time a tutorial, a post, or a nice live broadcast comes out, you get the alert. So it is not imperative, but nearly so. Today we will focus on the makeover of this quite ugly piece of furniture that you can see. You know that we often deal with these hopeless cases, but it will become a desk. Voila, for Margherita. Actually, this has been fixed simply because it has an emotional value. It was my brother-in-law's childhood desk. He recovered it from the basement of an old house and said, "Look, if you can restore it, we can put it in Margie's room so she has her own place to do her homework." And I said, "Okay, let's try to make a miracle because it can't stay like this." He also tried to tell me not to distort it, but I said, "Enrico, there is nothing to save here. It needs to be changed." You know that Enrico is a conservative, but we have to change it completely. We will work with tone-on-tone textured stencils. We will have fun by applying particular knobs, a special color. We will make it much lighter and fresher, and it will be a useful piece of furniture since it has a lot of space to store books, homework, and everything else. Shall we start? Be sure to subscribe to the channel. It is good to go over it again so as not to forget. You know that Magic Paint clings on all surfaces, but they must be cleaned and prepared well. How? Simply by washing with ABA, hot water, baking soda, and ammonia, not bleach, which has happened in the past. So, baking soda, let's say 4 to 5 tablespoons. Don't weigh it. It doesn't change that much anyway. In 2 liters of hot water, more or less. And here we put roughly 1 glass, 2 glasses, depending of course on how much, a little bit more on how much water you put in. It has to be a degreasing solution, okay? And if the water is too dirty because the furniture is very worn, very dirty, it is obviously essential to change it and redo it. Obviously, ABA must be rinsed, so make sure you don't dry it after doing ABA. You wash it using either the slightly rough sponge that wipes the surface and degreases well, or a smooth cloth and then rinse. One important thing, if you have furniture that has a veneer, antique furniture, valuable furniture, or any furniture that may wear out with washing, never use the sponge too wet. The sponge must be well wrung out, and you can start washing the surface. Many people tell me, I did what Elisa says, I did ABA on the surface, but sometimes we talk about tiles, kitchen tiles. They have a much higher greasiness than this piece of furniture here. ABA should also be done several times on some surfaces, even 2 or 3 times, because it is a surface that only if thoroughly cleaned remains perfect over time, especially in tile joints. So be careful, preparation is essential, but so is repetition. I now pass with the coarser sponge, and Emma, in the meantime, with the microfiber cloth, goes over maybe the less dirty spots behind me. Only thorough washing guarantees that the paint will stick, and above all, hold well over time. So you say to me, "Elisa, isn't it necessary to sand?" It is not necessary to sand. Moreover, it is dangerous. Firstly, for your health, because what you sand, you breathe in, and secondly, because if you sand, you scratch the underlying surface, you scratch the wood. Let's say that in 5 years you get fed up with the color and you want to restore it as it was before. If you have scratched the surface, you can't do it anymore. So I suggest you don't sand it.
We've finished doing ABA on the entire furniture piece, and now I'm rinsing it with clean water and a clean cloth.
I always carefully wring out the cloth well and start.
We start by removing this molding, not because it's not pleasant, but because it's off-center. It makes no sense for it to be at this height and not in the center of the door, also because opening it would not touch even if it were lower. So we don't like it because it is unpleasant. Heat gun, because when these moldings are put on, they are applied with nails and glues. In order not to break, not to uproot everything, you have to heat it well first. I use a heat gun. If you don't have one, a very hot hair dryer is good. I start to slowly heat up small pieces. In this way, the glue sizzles, heats up, dries out, and becomes much, much easier to remove the decoration. I'm not going to remove and throw away the molding. I'll keep it in good condition because it will surely be useful for another makeover. Emma, please, keep your hands off.
Yes.
You have to heat it very well because if the molding is not hot, it will crack. As you can see, there are still the nails, which I will remove. If you see at this moment, you can see these bubbles coming off. It is just the heat gun going to heat up the surface that has the protection, and therefore it strips off. Slowly it comes off. I do it on the whole molding and then sand to level and smooth. Et voilà. The first part of the molding has been removed. Now I'm using pliers to pull out these pins which were put in with a nail gun. They are very thin. And it's a good thing because at least they haven't ruined the surface. After that, we sand lightly before the next step, which will be the stencil. For this beautiful bookshelf desk, I decided to use this stencil, which is called Lovely Flower, actually. It will make it more contemporary because it will be almost see-through, as it will be made tone on tone and textured, but romantic, and what I want is to update this bookshelf without, however, taking away the classic warmth that the flower provides. I'm going to put it here and take advantage of the fact that there's a bit of a gap to leave 1 centimeter above and 1 below so that my stencil is completely centered. After that, I will move it because it is repositionable, and I will do the whole background with this stencil. I will do it here, and also here where I removed the molding earlier. I secure the stencil with a little piece of paper tape so that I am sure that it doesn't move, and with the textured paste and my little Cenerentola spatula, I do the stencil. You absolutely must have Cenerentola if you love textured stencils, because it makes your surface even, but with a higher layer than the one provided by classic spatulas. And so it helps you so much not to struggle and have a good result. I use this Belle Arti spatula simply to get some product down directly on the stencil. Then with my Cenerentola spatula, I go and spread it over the whole surface so that it fills the grooves of the stencil. It must be a gentle stroke, and be sure to be very precise so that you don't smudge, don't lift the stencil. But you don't have to press on it right now. In fact, you see, I set up with the cabinet horizontally just to be more comfortable, to minimize waste. Indeed, I don't want to waste paste at all. And above all, if you work horizontally, even when you make stencils, you will be much more precise. Let's remove the stencil and see if I was precise. Voila, it turned out quite well. I let it dry, or I dry it with a hair dryer and then continue with repositioning. For the color, we decided to use the classic oval Magic Paint brush. Right now I use the 50, but I will also help myself with the roller because here we want a covering, smooth finish without any particular textured or non-textured finish. So these are the two brushes that work well for us. Definitely the oval 50 and 60 and the roller. We use the color that for me, by definition, is elegant, but also very sophisticated and feminine, Vieux Trèsor. It is a very, very light wisteria, but it has nothing to do with lilac because it has a very, very elegant gray base. Look, apart from its stunning coverage, it covers so much. It is perfect even for very modern combinations because it matches perfectly with dark grays, light grays, whites, and marbles. So if you have very modern and contemporary furniture and finishes in your home, this is the one for you. We start with the brush on the sides, on the edges, and then proceed with the roller on the smoother parts. Here you go. Look how much it covers. Wonderful. So we're going to do the corners first, then we will open the door. We're going to do the inside. We'll do everything well. But it is important to know that when there are surfaces like this, which present many challenges, including the door opening, the angle, you have to be a little more careful. Here, for example, in order to go deep with the material stencil, it is also good to use the brush in both directions, one way and the other. Regarding the roller application, there's something new. This is the classic Magic Paint sponge roller, flared, which leaves no marks. You know, it comes in white, black, it depends a little bit. We always change them. And then there's a new roller. It's got very fine hair. It's specially designed for spreading with Magic Paint. It goes deep, even when there are material stencils like this one. And it spreads very well without leaving hair or marks. But you have to have a nice spread. What does that mean? You don't have to stretch it, you don't have to press it, you take it, you spread it, and once the paint is finished, you don't have to press it because otherwise it leaves a mark. Application with the sponge roller and application with the new roller. This is the classic Magic Paint sponge roller that works extremely well and that we have always used for our makeovers. This is the kind of coverage it has here. And this is the new Magic Paint roller with the thin hair. A very special hair that can also apply chalk paint with no problem. See how it also spreads on textured surfaces. Spectacular. Yes, it is perfect, both on surfaces like this, let's say a little bumpy that have stencils, but it is also perfect on walls, for example, a little rough. It removes all flaws by following a rule. You use it well and optimize costs and time only if you always apply it full. So the moment there's no more color, like me right now, I don't stretch it, I don't do that. Here right now I'm going through and I'm sponging. No, I don't do that, otherwise it leaves a mark. The spreading is beautiful only if it is homogeneous and smooth, so I load it again. I always work with a full roller with a lot of paint, and this way I'll optimize the timing because I'll do it much faster and I'll surely apply a coat less. But above all, you'll see that here it will take very little time to cover everything. Look at this, 2 strokes, and the surface is perfect. So I advise you not to dislike the roller, but to use the right one for the right surface here. Look, however, our ally, it is always the brush. The roller reaches into the corners, but the brush reaches them better. So you need both roller and brush to get a nice, perfect application. Now you choose which one to use, whether the classic sponge or the one with the hair. But remember, both should always be used when loaded. If you press down or use less, they don't cover well. It's time for the second coat. Emma took the pointed brush because it goes well in the corners without scratching. In fact, Many times we see posts where it says, "Elisa, why do I see that in the corners?" There's been a screaming, excuse her, however, jokes aside, in the corners it's like this because by stroking many times with the brush we create this streak because instead of putting we take away. Also, what happens? There is less air going into these corners, less hot air flowing, less current flowing, so it is obvious that in the corners the paint remains a little more, let's say, transparent and covers a little less. So when you do the roller and brush application, you take the pointed brush, fill it in well, brush it through well, and don't go back and forth too many times. One stroke is enough. Also remember that it is better to dry the corners with a hairdryer before applying the second coat. Okay? Otherwise, with the second one, you'll remove the first one. Now, pointed brush, load it well like this. So you start with a fairly loaded brush, and you have to do this. A nice, smooth, and velvety stroke that covers the whole corner. See? This way we are sure that when we paint with the roller, the corner will be perfectly covered, and there will no longer be this shading caused by the rising background color. So be careful with the corners. First you work on the corners, then you work with the roll. So Emma, take a good look and copy me. You work immediately on the corner, covering all the defects caused by the first coat so that when we apply the second one with the roller, it will be perfect. You see, in this case, you no longer see any shading. Now with the roller, I am going to smooth it all out. I also apply the second coat here where it is already perfect because it is a piece of furniture that will not have patinas, washes, or any other kind of finish anyway. So I like to make sure it is really perfect. The second coat is dry and we really like the color. This lilac is very delicate, very beautiful and modern because it has this hint of gray. It looks good in so many different houses, both classic and modern. And now we're going to do a rather special finish because this desk is for my granddaughter. My granddaughter's name is Margherita, and we were lucky enough to find a decoupage from the Temalì Deco line that has a daisy design. So we thought we would seize the opportunity and to place our decoupage on the lower part of the drawer. You know, that decoupage that has a light background is best handled with a clear base. We will use a light color, dark sand, but not white because I don't want something too cold. And I will spread it all over the internal part, excluding the frame. We connected the drawers with 2 clamps so that they are close together. That way I don't move them anymore. I can even put decoupage on it and nothing moves. So a nice, smooth, velvety coat of dark sand inside the drawers and one of the decoupage. Can you get me a wet microfiber cloth so I can clean the edge I have smudged? This is what you can do. Take the Architetto brush, which is a very precise brush and goes well in corners. And you should hold a damp microfiber cloth close by. Wrung out, of course, and go and clean if you happen to smudge the frame. This way you don't have to mask with paper tape and you do it well and quickly. You see, it makes sense for me to also do the edging because it should stay clear. But I will definitely risk dirtying the frame. In this case, with just a cloth, I can clean it and I don't risk smudging. Look here. Once, and if necessary, wipe a second time. Voila, everything is nice and clean. He loves me or he loves me not. This decoupage by Temalì is beautiful, and it's not a repositioning, it's just like that. It's a band. It is a long, narrow band, which I think is perfect on furniture bases. It can be placed even on the bottom of a cupboard or on drawers. It's a special decoupage. There aren't many of this size and shape on the market. So, as usual, we glue it with our protective paint. I set aside half, which we'll apply later. We already got the protective paint, the satin one, and we have already diluted it. This way it is already nice and smooth and ready to glue our decoupage. Be aware that these decoupage are a little bit different from the classic ones that you can find on the market, because they are more resistant, and you can actually afford to let the sheet adhere to the surface by pulling it up and down a few times. They do not break like rice paper ones and do not flake like cloth ones. Let's say it is a strengthened fiber. Now, I don't know exactly what material it is, but it is a natural fiber. Yes, they really call them natural fibers. It is a natural fiber that is very resistant. Okay, so now you will see that when I apply this decoupage to the surface, it will certainly absorb a good part of the protective paint I put on. I will pull it up and down, and I can also add some protective paint without being worried that it will break. Yes, then I would like to have the base of the daisy attached to the base in the center. Yes, more or less in the middle. So, how are you? About right. All right, you have to be careful. See? We must make it stick. Careful. Let's pull it up a bit. You will definitely see some wrinkles, and those are the ones that bother us. We get scared and think, now what's going on? I made a mess, and that we increase the mess. No, we put some more protective paint on top because it will help to make the decoupage absorb everything as much as possible, so it gets nice and damp. And the wrinkles increase, of course, because as the paper gets wetter, these wrinkles increase. But that is precisely where the difference lies. That is precisely where the quality of decoupage lies. You see how it also becomes beautifully alive, how the colors intensify. So let's pull it up from here. You see, just wait a minute. Thank you. Hold it here like this. Voila. You see, I'm repositioning it completely again. Do you see? It's very easy to lift and reposition it. Now I take the brush and lay it down a second time. Voila, look. Did you see? It absolutely did not break, it did not flake, it did not change. Of course, you have to pay attention to two main things. Air, because if you get air or there are air bubbles, it is unpleasant to see. But above all, that there are no spots where there is no protection. It is paper, so a large part of what it absorbs from above will also go below, and vice versa. Can you hand me the yellow spatula? You see, now the wrinkles are no longer there, and the few that are due to it being natural recycled paper with some straw inside. Now we obviously do this, so we press down and the decoupage adheres well to the corner. Let's not go and cut it now that it is wet. No, let's wait for it to dry well, and then we will go with a cutter and cut off the excess borders. You see? Here too, and here too. I have already spread a good amount of a protective coating on the base, and now we are going to get closer. You've seen it before. Now we do the joining, almost like wallpaper. We go as close as possible. We can also raise and reattach it so that there are no problems in the adjustment as well. See? So that once it dries, you will not notice the gap at all. I'll start applying the protective coating here too. Of course, we will also need to lower and raise the decoupage here, but we will reposition it without any problems. It will not break, and we will not have any flaws. There you go. As you absorb it, you see some wrinkling appearing, but we go and lower it again. Now we finish. Let it dry naturally. Do not force it with the hairdryer because it is important to understand that the protective paint must dry naturally. And then we carry on with the makeover. It's time to cut our decoupage. Cut because we need a blade. This is my and Emma's sharp cutter and no one should touch it, right? I just removed the extra blade, which was a little worn, and now I finish it off by going near the corner because you shouldn't see where I cut. Now we remove all the excess decoupage that we have cut out. Be careful, slowly, because in some places there may still be a few parts that are not well cut. It could be visible. It's always best to take it easy before you rip something off. There you go. If you see that it sticks, it is simply because, thanks to the protective coating, it adhered to the surface. If in some places the protective layer has caused some flaws or small gaps, you can simply use the cutter to remove the excess. Like over here, I have some excess paper. I go with the tip of my blade to remove the excess. Now it's up to you to figure out whether it turned out well or if it should be touched up with the base color. Every makeover is different and every procedure is different, okay? The fact is that the clear division between the decoupage and the furniture must be perfect. So if in some places there are a few small abrasions or a bit of protective coating, go with the small brush and touch up with the base color. Again, with the cutter, we are going to cut our decoupage on the drawers. So we carve the point of division of the drawer. There you go. Now a word of advice. We are going to cut our drawer apart and there will certainly be a sharp cut. You still apply a coat of protective coat so that the decoupage is protected. So with the protective coat, you still go over both the decoupage and the edge so that it's sealed. Now I'll take an abrasive sponge, a medium one, go over the inner edges and have a nice smooth surface. With the brush, I will touch up here so that all our base Vieux Trèsor is perfect. And I will apply one more coat of protective coat over this, the decoupage and the edges. One thing not to be underestimated, it must always be well sealed here so that over the years the decoupage does not lift. To make this beautiful desk more three-dimensional, which now looks great with daisies, I'll do a light pickling on the whole part where the stencil is. It's up to you to decide whether you want to do the pickling all over. I don't feel like it today because it's a piece of furniture made of a material that's not very valuable, and I don't like seeing this wood. So now I just sand the part with the raised stencil, but maybe in a while I'll change my mind, who knows? Having used the white textured paste now, of course, by sanding, the color underneath comes out. I don't want to achieve a perfect effect. I just want to catch a glimpse of the stencil, but that's very personal. You have to sand as much as you like and bring out the design as much as you like. There isn't a rule, so enjoy. You should remove the dust with a cloth as you work so that you can check the progress. This way you will see how far you have come and understand if you still want to lighten by removing color or if you like it as it is. It's time to protect. It will not have the highest wear because it may not be washed every day. It's the desk of a little girl doing her homework there. So it might take a few bumps, the rucksack, a book. We will give it a good coat of satin protective paint. We will certainly apply one coat on the entire structure, while for the shelves and the interior, on which Margherita will do her homework, we will apply 2 coats. This way even scissors pencils will not create any scratches. So satin protective paint, because it is not shiny and therefore not so, let's say, flashy, but it is also not opaque like the soft touch. I think she'll like the satin protective paint. It is a fair compromise, and I had already used it over the decoupage. So you have to carry on like this. So Emma, you apply the satin protective paint on the background and the shelves, and also show me how good the backdrop looks once protected. I'll start from here. All right. We both have a brush for protective paint. I have the Maggie. You have the Demon. Yes. And they both have very delicate bristles, perfect for spreading the protective paint product well. Remember, the protective paint must always be applied in the same direction. So even if you do the basic cross brush stroke, you have to do the last brush stroke in the direction of the length of the cabinet. In this case, having a roller stroke underneath, we will truly have a perfect, flawless surface. The protective paint has been diluted by 30% because at least it's much more fluid, and so I can slide the brush nicely over the entire surface without leaving any marks. This makeover is also finished. One of the funniest makeovers ever, because it's true that we do take ourselves seriously. We do basements with the pouncing technique. We do upholstered armchairs with Damiano Bitrito, with Alex. We do other things. But you also have to remember that this is the furniture we most often find at home. In the basement. In houses that we sometimes discover. This is the furniture we have in front of us every day. And so these are the pieces of furniture that most of all need our help to become modern again. I'm sure Margherita will like it, but let's ask her now. Come, Margie. We have an exceptional actress today. Listen, look there. Say hello to everyone if you want.
Hello there.
What's your name?
Margherita.
What did your aunt put on the cabinet for you? Daisies. And do you like the color? Yes. All right. So, look, I'll tell you just one thing. I've applied for you on this side of the desk 2 layers of protective paint. That way, even if you open it up to do your homework, you're sure it won't scratch and ruin it. All right? Just don't scratch to prove it. All right? So, listen. Do you want to say goodbye with me to whoever's home? We have to tell them to subscribe to the channel because it's important. Because if they subscribe to the channel, I can keep making lots of videos. And to say in the comments if they liked it, okay? Do you tell them? Subscribe to the channel. See you at the next makeover. Bye.